Hey all, my name's Amanda. Welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to do a video about how to crochet a hat in any size using one simple pattern that's easy to memorize and that will allow you to design your own hats if you want to, even if you are a beginner. So this video is longer than a lot of my other videos, but I want to make sure that I'm being thorough and explaining it well enough that everyone can understand. First, I'm going to talk about the materials that you'll need, and then I'll get a little bit into the theory, sort of the crochet theory behind why the pattern works the way it does and how it can be so versatile that you can make so many different sizes out of the same pattern. Then I'm going to explain the pattern, and I'm going to do a slow step-by-step demonstration of actually making a hat. And then I will explain to you how you can adjust the pattern to use any yarn that you want to use and also to design your own hats. So first I want to show you some examples of hats that I've made using this base pattern. This is an example here that's pretty basic. This is a child size hat. And then here's a baby hat that I made using the same sort of base pattern and building on it. You can also do different stitch patterns. This is the same sort of stitch pattern in a different size. But you can do a variety of different stitch patterns using the same base pattern. This was built on the same pattern as well. These out of the way. This one was built on the same base pattern. And then you can also do stripes and that sort of thing. I'm going to show you the materials that I'm going to be using in this demonstration. One is just a tape measure. You will need a tape measure for this type of pattern. And then I just have some basic worsted weight yarn. You want to use something that is a weight 4 if you're going to follow the pattern as I'm going to show it to you today. But then again, at the end of the video, I will give you instructions on how to adjust this for any size yarn. But for the demonstration, we're going to use just some worsted weight 4 weight yarn. And then I have a size I hook and a size J hook. That's a 5.5 millimeter and a 5.75 or 6 millimeter hook. So the basic idea behind this pattern is built on the concept that crochet stitches are almost all, the same width. They're just a variety of heights, okay? So if you have a piece that is 10 inches long, for example, say you're making a scarf or something, and say it's 10 inches wide, as long as you do one stitch into each of those stitches that makes it 10 inches wide, and you never increase or decrease, it's going to stay 10 inches wide, okay? And the reason for that is all of the stitches are the same width. As long as you're doing one stitch into one stitch as you build the piece, it's not going to get any wider or any narrower. So the same concept works in the round. So you can see here, the top of this hat is just a disc. So we're going to call this the crown of the hat. This hat is worked from the center outward to increase to a certain size crown, okay? That's the basis for all those hats I showed you. That's going to be the basis for the entire pattern that I'm going to break down for you. And it's going to be the way that you adjust the size of the hat. And I actually have a chart I'll show you here in a minute that gives you the breakdown by size when you're looking at the size of the crown you need to make. And I'm going to have that available for download. There'll be a link in the description of the video. So just like we said, if you have a piece of, like if you're doing a scarf or something and it's 10 inches wide, as long as you do one stitch into each stitch, it's going to stay the same width. It's not going to get narrower or wider. The same sort of idea works in the round. So once you've increased to however many stitches are here around the top of the hat, and you just continue, you stop increasing, and then you just work in one stitch in each stitch, it will develop this sort of shape. So to show you here, I've made a variety of, essentially these could be crowns to hats, okay? So some of them are double crochet, some of them are half double crochet. The chart will explain to you which one to use. So these would make different size hats if I were to just work a stitch in each one of these and continue that for multiple rounds. It's just going to sort of grow down this way to make the hat shape. And it won't be flat on top when you put it on your head. So what I'm going to show you now is the chart I'm talking about, and hopefully I'm not confusing and you're sticking with me, but I promised you once we get into the actual pattern, it's going to be so easy. Like, you will be able to memorize this and just do it in your sleep. This is the chart that I was talking about before, and again, I'm going to have this available for download. I'll put the link to the video at the top of it for you once this video is posted, and I have a link for it. I also have some notes at the bottom that we're going to go over that will be available to you. This is the size, and I have this here for inches in US hook sizes and centimeters in UK hook sizes, even though I'm using the US terminology in terms of calling something double crochet, half double crochet. So, but this is just for measurement purposes. I thought I'd make it easy for you. So you're gonna have the size hat that you wanna do. Then it's gonna tell you here what your crown diameter is. So to show you some examples, so this here, let's measure the diameter. You want to measure directly across the middle, right across this center. So that's going to be right at 5 inches. So if I look here at crown diameter, 5 inches, that's going to give us a hat for a 3 to 6 month old. So how do you get a crown that is this diameter? So what I've done for you, if you are using a 4-weight yarn, which is just the worsted weight yarn, or any yarn that has a 4 as the weight on the label, if you're using a 4-weight yarn, I've already worked out here for you which size hook to use, so I have it both ways, which side hook to use, and how many rounds you're going to do, and which stitch you're going to do, whether it's double crochet or half double crochet. So if I look at this hat here, this is double crochet, not half double crochet. So look at how many rounds I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is 6 rounds of double crochet, and I used a size I hook, and that gave me a hat that has, a crown that is 7.5 inches across. Then I just started doing 1 stitch in each stitch around and just continued that all the way down the hat. Just 1 stitch in each stitch, continued it down. And you're going to continue down until you get to the right here, the hat height. So like this one is about 5.5 inches tall. So this again was a 3 to 6 month old hat. The pattern you're going to memorize is how to make the crown. And I'm going to teach you a really easy way to learn it so that you don't have to count stitches or anything like that. I did want to mention that if you have any questions or you're struggling with anything, please leave a comment. I try to respond to every comment on all of my videos, so I will do my best to help you if I'm able. Okay, so let's get into the pattern for the crown. I'm going to do a 3 to 10-year-old. So that tells me that my crown diameter needs to be 6.5 inches, that I want to use an I hook and do 5 rounds of double crochet. So this is going to be the same no matter which you're doing, whether it's the double crochet or the half double crochet. You're going to work the crown pattern the same way, but I'm going to say double crochet as I'm doing this because I'm in this instance doing double crochet. But if on the chart yours calls for half double crochet, then you would replace that with half double crochet. So you're always going to start with chaining 4, and then you're going to join with a slip stitch to make a ring. So I'm going to go, I've chained 4, and I'm going to insert my hook right here into this first chain that I did. Insert it, drop a loop, and then pull through to slip stitch. This is how you start any hat that you're doing this pattern. You're always going to start with a chain 1, and then you're going to work 11 of your double crochet or your half double crochet, in this case double crochet. You're going to work 11 of those into that hole that you made. So I've chained 1, I'm going to work 11 double crochet into this. So double crochet, you just yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so that's 1. I'm going to do that again, 2, and again I'm working into that same hole every time. 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm kind of turning it as I go. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So the next thing I'm going to do is join my double crochets. I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the top of the first double crochet that I did. I find it's helpful to count your crochet stitches, your double crochet stitches, to find the right spot to join. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is where I'm going to join it. I'm just going to insert my hook there. Join with a slip stitch means I'm just going to pull through and pull through. So now I've made like a little disc. For the next round, you're going to do 2 double crochet into each double crochet that you did. This is always going to be the same no matter which one of these patterns that you're following for the different sizes. You're always going to do the second round as 2 stitches, increase by doing 2 stitches in each stitch around. You always want to start with a chain 1. Then you're going to work your 2 stitches into that same stitch that you joined to. You don't want to skip anything. You're going to go straight back into that same stitch that you joined into. So I'm going to work 2 double crochet into that stitch. Move on to the next stitch, and I'm going to work 2 double crochet into that one. Next stitch, 2 double crochet. Next stitch, and I'm just going to do this all the way around into each of those 11 stitches. As you get close to the end, if you have a little trouble being able to tell which is your last stitch to work into, but this is going to be the last stitch that you work into. It's not going to be, oops. It's not going to be this here. So next thing I'm going to do, and you're going to do that at the end of every round, is you're going to join again with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. You're not going to join into the chain that you started the round below with. You're not going to join in the chain. You're going to join in the top of the first stitch that you did. So go through, pull it through. So that's going to join your ring. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a minute and explain to you what you're going to do for the remaining rounds, and explain it to you in a way so that you can memorize how and when to do the increases. So we started with 11. We did 2 in each one, and that gives us 22. So as we go, the number of stitches that we're going to have is going to be a multiple of 11. It's really easy to remember. So 11, 22, the next one's going to be 33, the next one's going to be 44, the next one's going to be 55. Get my notepad here. So round 1 is going to have 11 stitches. Round 2 is going to have 22. Round 3 is going to have 33. Light just went off there. Round 4 is going to have 44. Round 5 is going to have 55, etc. So let me kind of show you how this works. So for the first round, we did 11, and then we did 2 in each one. So I'm going to draw just to demonstrate. This is going to be flat, not round, but it's going to essentially show you the number of stitches in each round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So let's say those are your 11 stitches that are in your first round. That's your row 1, which is 11. Okay, so when we did the second round, we did 2 in each. So we'll do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you can do that all the way across. So you're doing 2 in each one. That gives you round 2, which is 22 stitches. So these are 22. Okay, so you can kind of see how I did that as I was going through. I counted to a count of 2. So for round 2, I counted to a count of 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way across. When you do round 3, you're going to get 33 stitches, and you're going to increase every other stitch. But the easiest way to remember to do that is to a count of 3. So I'm going to do 1 stitch here, 2, 3 here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So as you increase, your the end of the count is going to be where you increase. So you're counting to 3. So you're going to end your increase 1, 2, 3. So let me show you on here what that looks like. When I'm increasing here, I'm going to do it to a count of 3. So I'm going to chain 1 always to start my round. I'm going to always double crochet into the same stitch that I joined with. So that's my 1, and I'm going to go to a count of 3, which means I do 2 and 3 in the same stitch. So I'm just going to go around to a count of 3. I do 1, and I'm sorry, I'm bumping the camera here. That was 1, and then 2 and 3 go into the same stitch. 1, and then 2 and 3 go into the same stitch. And this is easy to remember because you're on round 3. Round 1, round 2, round 3. So when you're on round 3, you increase to the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to do this all the way around. So when I get toward the end, so I'm on my 2, 3. What you will find, oh, there goes the dog. What you will find is that you will end your count of 3 at the end of the previous round. So I just did my 1 and then my 2, 3. Do that again. 1. Whoops, going to the actual stitch this time. 2, 3. So that's what I just continued around. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, all the way around. Ended the 2, 3 on the end. You're going to join it to the first stitch, to the chain. You're going to join it to the first stitch, right to the first stitch. And now you have 1, 2, 3, 11, 22, 33 stitches. When you do the next round, I'll show you on the pad first and then I'll demonstrate it for you. So we did our 2s, 1, 2, 3. So the next one is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to do it to a count of 4 and you will end up with 44 stitches. I'll show you what that looks like. So you're going to start with a chain 1 always on each round. I'm going to work my first stitch into the same stitch that I joined. And that was 1. I'm going to do it to a count of 4. So that was 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 go in the same stitch. 3, 4. And continue to the count of 4. So 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 go in the same stitch. 3, 4. So just like I did previously with the count of 3, I'm going to go to the count of 4 all the way around, and it will put me right here at the last stitch of the previous round. 3, 4. So I'm on my last count of 4. 1, 2. Whoops. If I can get it. 2. And on my last stitch, I'm going to do my 3, 4. 3, 4. Join to the first stitch from the previous round, not the chain 1 that I started with. Join it. There we go. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 22, 33, 44, 11, and then count of 2, count of 3, count of 4 to your increases. So I need to do one more round, and can you guess how we're going to do that? It's going to be to the count of 5. So start with a chain 1, double crochet into the same stitch you joined. I'm going to do to the count of 5. So that was 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 are going to go in the same stitch. 4, am I in the same stitch? Yeah, 5. And I'm going to continue around to the count of 5 until I get back to the beginning. And so I've gotten to 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and 5 are going to go in this last stitch. 4 and 5 in the same stitch because I'm going to the count of 5. Join to the first double crochet of the previous round. So according to my chart, if I'm doing the child size hat, I've done my 5 rounds and I should be at a crown diameter of 6.5 inches, and we are. So now that I'm done with the crown and the increases, all I'm going to do to finish the hat is work 1 stitch in each of these stitches around, and I'm not going to increase or decrease anymore. If you were to increase more, if you're looking at some of these larger hats where you're going to have like 7 rounds, it's the same concept. You increase to a count of 3, a count of 4, a count of 5. You're going to continue a count of 6 for the next row, a count of 7 for the next row. Okay, so you're just going to continue. So if you were doing a count of 6, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6 would go in the same stitch. So hopefully that makes sense. But for this one, I just needed 5 rounds and 55 stitches, so I have that. So I'm just going to work super basic. Just going to do double crochet in each one of these stitches around. And the goal is for my hat to eventually be 7.5 inches tall. So right now, if you're measuring the height, which would be from here down, we're only at about 3.5 inches tall. So I just need to continue 4 more inches worth of rounds, excuse me. This is where you could start getting creative with it. You could do single crochet, you could do double, you could do half double, you could do treble. It doesn't matter. It would just need to be the 1 stitch per 1 stitch as you go around. So I'm just going to start with a chain 1. You always want to work into the same stitch you joined. And I'm just going to do a double crochet in each stitch all the way around. Okay, I'm getting to the end of the previous round. Got 2 stitches left, so I'm just doing 1 in each, 1 double crochet in each stitch. Connecting it. And as you can see, it's no longer lying flat. It actually goes this way, but it's no longer lying flat. It's starting to curl up a little bit on the end, even with just that 1 row. And it's going to continue to grow this way and get that hat shape. And eventually, as you add rounds of double crochet, you're going to continue to measure until your hat is the height listed on the chart. With it, I'm going to do a round of front post double crochet just so you can see that it keeps the same shape. If you're not familiar with front post double crochet, you start it as a normal double crochet, but instead of going in, you want to go around. And I like to go around the starting chain as well as the first stitch of the previous round because it gives it an evener, a nicer join. So I'm going to go around, draw through 2, draw through 2, just continue that around. There's my last stitch. Whoops. And I'm just going to join to this the top of this first double crochet. I'm still keeping this sort of hat, this bucket shape that's going to grow. So you can see it's turning into a hat, even though I did the front post double crochet. I do recommend that you do the last 2 rounds or so of the hat as single crochet. It gives it a little bit of a more finished look, and it also makes it a little less stretchy at the bottom so that it's not too loose. So I have some notes here on this PDF that you can download, and again, the link to that is going to be in the description below. How to adjust for different yarns. So you're going to start with the hook that the yarn label calls for. And this again is I. It's any yarn that you buy that has a label is going to have a hook recommendation for the most part. And you want to do that size or 1 size up. So if the yarn is heavier than a 4 weight, if it's a 5 or a 6 weight yarn, then you're going to do a smaller number of stitches. So this is 11, you would do fewer than 11 stitches to begin with here. If the yarn is lighter than a 4 weight, like if it's a 2 or a 3 weight, you would do a larger number than 11 here. So this will take some trial and error. You just want to make sure that you're doing the number of stitches that yields a crown that lies flat like this one does. You're going to increase in the same 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern. So like you would do your round, and then you increase 2, count of 2, 1, 2, increase to a count of 3, 1, and then 2 and 3 in the same stitch, increase to a count of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 and 4 in the same stitch. So the same thing you did here is going to apply. What may be different is you may end up with extra stitches. So like when we did this one here, when we ended a round, like this one, for example, this round was a count of 3. So we did 1 and then 2, 3 in the same stitch. 1, 2, 3 in the same stitch. When we got back to the beginning, we finished in the last stitch of the prior round. That may not happen when you've adjusted for a different yarn and you've adjusted the number of stitches. You may not end on the end of a pattern, of the increase repeat. So like this one is 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 3, 4 in the same stitch. You may end on that second stitch. You may only at the end of the round get to say 1, 2, and then there's no stitch to do 3, 4, and 2. That's fine. So the goal is to just get a flat piece that is this diameter to match up with the size hat you'd like to get. If you find that it's getting ruffly, you've either got too many stitches, like if it's starting to look like this as you're trying to get it to lie flat, you've either got too many stitches to start with, you need to go back and start with fewer stitches, or the hook that you're using is too large. If you find that it's sort of doing this and you can't get it to lie flat because it's kind of making like a bowl shape, like this, if it's doing this as you're trying to get it to lie flat, then you're doing too few stitches to start with, or you are using a hook that is too small. And I have that here on the bottom for some notes to remember. For pattern repetition, so say you wanted to do, I actually have a video that I have linked here, and I'll put it in the cards as well, up here in the corner, that tells you how to count pattern repetitions to adjust the size of a crochet pattern. So essentially, like for example, this hat is, when I did the rounds, it was 1 front post double crochet, 1 back post double crochet. So it was just front post, back post, front post, back post. But the issue is I ended up with 55 stitches up here. So I needed, it was a repeat of 2, 1, 2, 2 stitches. And so I needed to have an even number of stitches to start with instead of the 55, which is odd because it's a 2 stitch repetition. I need an even number to start with. If that happens, all you have to do is just do an extra stitch at the end of the last round of the crown, and it'll line up just fine. But this video here will help you understand that. Last thing to mention is if you want to have a slouchy hat, then you want to work your crown to the size that it lists on the chart, and then do 2 more rounds. So if this is the size I wanted to match up, but I wanted the hat to be slouchy, I would do 2 additional rounds to make a bigger crown. And then for the height, I would do an additional 1 inch of height to make the hat slouchy, or 2.5 centimeters. And I have that here in your notes for download. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up and would consider subscribing before you exit my channel. Thanks for sticking with me. Hope to see you next time. Bye.